Welcome to Humans of Fintech, the show that tells the stories of diverse leaders who found belonging in our industry, so you can too. I'm Nicole Casperson. In this episode, it is not 420, but we are recognizing a trailblazer in both cannabis and fintech innovation with Mr. Jontae James. Jontae is the CEO and founder of NatureTrak, a compliance and risk management solution for financial institutions that is serving the cannabis industry. In this episode, we talk about how cannabis banking is really in its infancy, and NatureTrak plays an important role for helping financial institutions that are banking cannabis by guaranteeing that funds are not being laundered Ozark style. We talk about Jontae's experiences, both good and bad, as a serial entrepreneur, and some lessons he's learned along the way. Plus, we talk about why he is hyped about the next phase of cannabis meeting fintech innovations. This is such an exciting episode, truly an innovator in the space, and I'm so thrilled for you to hear it. Jontae is a light and just filled with energy, and I hope you enjoy it. Jontae James, so excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me from the sky rise in New York City. Almost.
Yeah, the sky rise in my Sacramento, New York City, right?
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again for joining. And I just want to jump right into your background, which I know has a huge influence on your career and why you chose to be a part of the fintech industry and how you kind of ended up founding and becoming the CEO of NatureTrak. So I feel like it starts with just growing up in Oakland and your experiences and views on incarceration and just cannabis and all the crazy propaganda around it. There's my cat.
Cat's making a guest appearance.
She always does. She's a celebrity. But anyways, yes.
No, yeah. So growing up in the Bay was great. So there was a lot of different things. So I grew up in the Bay, and then my parents had got divorced, and that's kind of when I got hit with the whole incarceration thing with cannabis and drugs and what my father was going through. My mom had took me out to Indiana at that time. And so then, I was kind of like back and forth visiting my father and things during high school. But as I've mentioned in some other interviews that I've done, is that, I was a dare kid at that time. So when that happened, it was really traumatic to me. Having my father going through that, having, being ripped away from him, my mom moving to Indiana, my mom then taking me to Indiana. And so I just always had this stigma around drugs in general and how it played a role in my life. And then especially when I was growing up through high school, through college, that was one of the foundational pieces of myself as, one of my characteristics, one of my qualities was like, I didn't want to go down that path. I didn't want to make the same mistakes. And so I've always kind of stayed true to that. Fast forward to where we're at, 2015, 2016, when I actually started the company. But, fast forward to where we're at now, and cannabis is legal. And, all the information that's out there, all the misinformation that was being used prior, and that's what's shaping my mind and shaping many other people's minds on what cannabis is and who these individuals are, and, really creating this stigma, this negative stigma and energy around that whole thing, and now having the opportunity to help with that. And so when I had the opportunity to kind of jump in, it was a personal mission for me, and it was about success. But it was also about being able to right some wrongs in my own personal, growth, because I did have that stigma toward my father. I had that stigma towards friends and at that time. And then now here I am helping legitimize the industry through fintech. And so the biggest problem in cannabis is, banking. That's by far the largest, and having access to adequate banking services. While that's happening, it's still, the haves and have nots, even in the cannabis industry, right? You have these big, large corporations, the Tilrays of the world. Oh, they can get banking all day. But then what about the small, medium? The same thing that we're facing as a society, we're seeing that from a fintech perspective with the unbanked and also in the cannabis space. And so now being able to take my knowledge of the industry, my knowledge of the supply chain, my knowledge of individuals who were in that traditional world and now apply it to technology and then wrap it around regulation, compliance, and then now being able to help legitimize cannabis moving forward. And so it's been a very, exciting last 6 years. It's also been a very tough 6 years. I'm sure all entrepreneurs go through that at some point in time. But it's just really what kind of shaped me. So coming from the Bay and having to deal with that and being faced with that adversity, the travel, etc., and then using my education to now empower the industry has really been great. It's really been self-fulfilling in that side.
It's really a amazing story, and you're really like, how we say, like, doing the work. You are doing the work, and really having some actual action items around it, right? We can kind of go around and talk about how we can make the world a better place as much as we want, but unless we're putting some I guess, like, money where our mouth is, so to speak, and some actions behind it, then we're not going to really make any progress forward in changing stigmas and in changing the way that people treat people that aren't receiving financial services for reasons that don't really make a lot of sense, right? I like to think about the definition of a market that is underserved. I think that far too often the industry, financial services, or even fintech sometimes, but trying to make it better, thinks that underserved markets is just like people of color or women or whatever, and that is true. But it means a lot of other things. It means people that work in cannabis, right? It means cannabis companies. It means any market that is not served by large enterprises because they have been profit centric businesses and not people and profit centric businesses. So, and I think that's what's amazing about like what you're doing in NatureTrak, because you can combine both and prove it to be profitable and prove it to be helpful for the world. And I'm sure it has not been easy on you because you're fighting two fights, right? Or multiple, right? And so, and that ain't easy. So kudos to you on all of those fronts.
No, I appreciate that. It's crazy that it's 2022 and we're still talking about the unbanked. And I had this like revelation the other day. I'm like, we're talking about people being unbanked in 2022 when we literally can transfer money via our cell phone anywhere in the world. And we're still talking about markets that are not being served and how, the establishment banking has kept people out and have not provided certain services because of, your economic demographic, where you live, et cetera, et cetera. You're in cannabis. It's just like, it's mind blowing that today we're still talking about the unbanked. And I mean, there's just going to be problems that we all have to solve. Again, I'm no crusader here, but I do feel, empowered by being able to help people and still being able to make a profit and be successful. But that's not really what it's about. But when you're raising money, all the investors care about is, are you going to be profitable, right? Not so much your mission. Hey, the mission's great. Let's go with that. It's like Tom's, right? Tom's blew up because they were giving away a pair of shoes with every shoe you bought. Like, how do you connect the two pieces together where you can have some social impact within your business model, and really, serve both of those masters and be successful at it?
Yeah, absolutely. Take us back to the moment when you felt like fintech would be the place where you'd find this kind of perfect balance, right? The sense of belonging, almost, of where you could have both the value and that mission, that conviction that you have, right, to change things for the cannabis industry and banking, but also still, right, have to raise money. We have to turn a profit. Like we have people to answer to it in some capacity. So yeah, when did it kind of hit you that maybe that NatureTrak could be the route?
I mean, I still don't feel like I belong to a certain extent, right? I think when our coming of age for NatureTrak is when we were at Money 2020 and we got accepted to the Startup Academy. That's when it was like, okay, we are doing the right thing. Other people seeing it. And this is what, 2018, 2019. So this is when cannabis wasn't even really as mainstream as it is today. Obviously, it was in the news and stuff, but far more accepted today. So I think that was kind of like our first feeling of belonging as a company. That was my kind of first feeling of belonging to a certain extent at that time. I was still learning all the terms, using them incorrectly, using different words from a financial side. So I was really still like winging it up there, right? Like, faking it till I make it. But I was still ingesting all the information from that point. But now I see that fintech has really opened my eyes to what can be done and where you can have impact. And I've talked to many friends, and I've said this before, that if I understood fintech or just finance and economics the way I do now, I probably would have went this path at the very beginning. And not down a marketing, branding, general business side. When I was in high school and stuff, econ was like watching paint dry. It was so boring. I didn't get it.
The worst.
I wanted to make a lot of money, but I was just like, I don't know about all this stuff. Supply, demand, got it. Got to have demand and then supply. Okay, cool. That's all I needed to know. But now, seeing how the world's moving and just really opening my eyes to the path of fintech, because now that I'm in it, I see everything from a fintech lens now. I understand why Apple now has a credit card and all. So I see these things happening and I'm like, oh, okay, I get what's going on. When before it was just, make a business. Oh, this is an app. It's cool. It works. Somebody told me to use it. Oh yeah, jump on Venmo. Okay. Oh, we just pay our friends peer to peer. Cool. I can split my my bottle service now, or when we go out to the restaurant. But there's so much more behind that, and how they're able to move the money, make money off the money being there, and how they've now created a lane for just the peer-to-peer payments at that time. And so it's like, with all these different communities that we have, fintech plays a huge role because money still moves no matter what's going on. And so there's always going to be exchanging in that. And so fintech's always in the center of that. There's always going to be somebody providing services. There's always going to be somebody purchasing those services. And so now fintech's that glue that connects everything.
I resonate with everything you say, because people ask me all the time, why fintech, right? Because if I think about it, I could probably take like my content's mission, right, and apply it anywhere. And maybe one day I will. But right now, I love the fintech space. What makes it so exciting is all of the things, right? All of the developments, is the maturing technology, is the fact that more people are interested in finance than ever before, and they're doing it through their mobile phones, right? Like, and to see how much it can impact someone's life and change things. And NatureTrak is doing just that. To me, I always think about how we're not necessarily building or changing an old system, but we're building a new one, right? And so you, though, kind of sit in the middle, right? Because you're helping banks and you're helping like institutions, right, be able to actually maybe work with the cannabis industry, and you're helping it happen in a very compliant, right? You're like sitting in the middle there of being like the compliant. We're gonna verify the entire like supply chain and the entire like process, so that your compliance and stuff can relax because we got it covered, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we got your back. You just hand it off to us. Yeah, I mean, we're demystifying everything. We're opening that black box, so to speak, and we're providing that transparency to make everybody feel comfortable. And I constantly tell banks, it's like, you don't have to be the cannabis expert. We are. The system is. And so we can take that burden from you. We can do the validation. We can do the verification. We understand what a good and a bad actor look like. We understand, how to work with the customers, and how we bring that on. And I mean, and we've really been shifting kind of our strength within this side and really taking on more of a front facing role with the client and forward facing. And now we're onboarding the clients, the cannabis operators for the banks. We're doing all the applications. We're helping opening the accounts. And so we're really starting to take over that entire sales process for them to become that kind of one-stop shop, that cannabis banking in a box, that, hey, we can provide you the compliance, but we also can bring you the clients. We can interact with the clients. So we can really take that burden away from you, and you just be a bank at the end of the day.
Yep.
You see our platform, you see what we've done. We've done, I guess, close. I need to check the numbers again. We're probably at like 2.7 billion now in cannabis related transactions, almost 1 billion in cash we should be pushing close to right now. And, we've been through federal examinations with no material findings. And so that's all been really good. And so there's a lot of trust now from financial institutions that when we talk to them, and so they see us as a resource and a tool that can really help them. And now they're, almost ready to be like, all right, Jontae, here, you take it. We believe in you. Yeah. You go take it. Let the deposits come in, and we'll be okay from there.
I mean, that is critical. That is that, and I feel like maybe not necessarily the way one would think that it could happen. It almost seems like a no-brainer, right? Like, it almost seems so simple. And I'm sure while you've been building this, it has not been so simple. But it takes that time, right? And it takes someone like yourself, right? It takes a leader who's willing, right, to. I love you mentioned like the public facing aspect of it, because that is the other side of fintech that I think is so interesting, is that, it has become something that is more public facing, is more center stage, not some behind the scenes technology. And, I think that's just going to continue to like evolve the world even more. And if you can, get more banks and financial institutions to help the industry, then, these things trickle down. I really believe, even like B2B stuff, I really believe that it trickles down and to the end user and to the consumer and to the culture, and like people see this stuff. I mean, it's, it's on the news, it's on podcasts like this. And so yeah, that's it. It really is interesting. You said earlier, I couldn't forget it. You said that you still felt a little like an outsider. And so I wanted to ask you about that, because one does not just feel like they belong right away. I'm definitely still learning how to feel that way myself. So curious, like, what elements maybe make you still feel like, oh, I haven't like quite really found my sense of belonging, if you will, in the space, right? Or what still makes you feel like an outsider?
No, yeah, I mean, I think, it's an entrepreneurial thing, right? We run it against stumbling blocks and roadblocks all the time. And I find, as a challenge for myself as a founder, because I don't have a banking background, I'm always trying to prove that I belong, that I understand the compliance. I know what's going on with the bank. I know how to make money with the bank. So I'm constantly always doing that. And it comes up very often when I'm talking to venture capitalists for funding and stuff. They're like, well, you haven't ran a bank, or, you weren't former compliance. We need to get somebody in here who's former banker. You just go be founder, and let's go bring a banker in here. And so that's where I struggle with the belonging. It's like, well, if it was just a banker, if it just took a banker, we wouldn't be here today. There wouldn't be a NatureTrak if it just took a banker. The bankers or the lawyers or the former compliance officers, those are our competitors, and they don't understand cannabis. And there's a reason why they weren't able to build the technology that we have, because they don't understand the other side of it. Of course, they understand banking, but they don't understand the cannabis supply chain. Well, I understand the cannabis supply chain. I understand enterprise systems and how to build SaaS solutions. And then I got thrust into this regulatory and compliance world, which I was already working in some other aspects, because there's compliance in everything. But now it was just having complete focus on the banking side. And so I just think it's always, trying to prove yourself, keeping that chip on your shoulder. Like, I never want to feel like I've made it just yet. Like, this is my first interview I think I haven't done with my glasses on. So I'm like, I'm going back to, who I am. My hair is burgundy again.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, like, let me be myself. That's what got us here. The work speaks for itself. Our experience and everything that we have done speaks for itself. And so it's gonna take that time. You can't be disruptive and believe everybody's gonna accept you. So it's okay that I don't, I'm not quote unquote belonging. I'm here. So whether you wanted me here or not, I'm here now. So what are we gonna do? We're just gonna make some magic happen. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to thrive. But more importantly, we're going to make an impact. And we're already starting to see that impact. And so I'm just looking forward to the next level, because that next level, once, NatureTrak gets acquired or something, then, that will be the super sense of belonging.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Right. And reaching those goals or those milestones. And no, I resonate with all of it. Right. It took a lot for me. I come from a traditional reporting background, which, like traditional finance is, it's very buttoned up. It's very suit and tie. It's like, you wear the right shoes, or you dress the right way, or your hair's done the right way. And
I know, I love
and
your
all that
jacket.
stuff.
I was like, man, I wish I could have brought some swag for you.
Oh, thanks. It's so funny because now I'm like, I go to conferences and I speak at events, and I like try really hard to stay myself. Like, that old suit that I don't care to wear anymore is like pushed into the back of my closet, and I'm still dressed obviously like appropriate, but like I'm dressing like me, and whatever makes me feel like me. And I think we need to like have more of that in this space, especially in fintech. So it's like, if I'm going to be swaggy, like, let me be swaggy, and let me have my hair, however, have my dyed hair burgundy, or whatever it is, because there's like so much more. We should be thinking about the impact, right? Than not just like
Right.
trying to fit any kind of mold, or being just like, otherwise we're just like traditional financial services, and that's like literally the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're right back where we started, right?
Exactly. And that's why I'm here for. That's like why kind of what I created with the fintech for. A huge mission, right, is to really hold the industry accountable, and so we don't end up just like traditional finance. So but anyways, I would be curious if there was anyone in particular who has really helped you feel like you I guess I don't necessarily want to use a sense of belonging, but like helps you, I guess, feel like, you have found your place, and that, NatureTrak is on the come up, and kind of going to reach that goal that you're after.
It's a very interesting question. To be honest, nothing really comes to mind, but I have a kind of a weird thing that comes to mind is our clients. The clients help me feel that, we belong, or we're doing something right, because we have clients that are looking for our services. And when I'm sitting there and I'm having conversations with them, and I'm interacting with them about what their workflows are, what's their use cases, how it relates to the platform, this is what you need to do from a regulatory perspective, I could just see that, everybody's nodding with me. And I get that strength that, we're doing right things here. They can easily just like, oh yeah, this is not going to work. They don't know what they're talking about, etc. So I really feel it from our clients. I've done several speaking things. That's always, a little boost to the ego. Like, hey, people want to hear what we have to say. We are doing something within the industry, but there's been so many people that have helped me along the way. I mean, I definitely have a team that people who've come in and out over these 6 years to kind of help prepare. And and that could be from a traditional banking background, that could be from compliance officers, that's from lawyers, etc. So there's been a lot of people that helped me on there. So I don't want to say any names per se, just in case they hear this and like, oh, you forgot about me. So don't forget, I'm thinking about you. I love all you guys for helping me get here. But yeah, like when you said that, the first thing that came to mind was clients. I mean, they're the ones that are sitting there right in the line of fire. I'm saying, hey, here's a solution to help you. And they're like, yes, this helps. And so that's the biggest proof point I can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. You're the first person, I think, to actually answer the question in that way, which is awesome. I love, we have to have like different answers and viewpoints and on here, of course. So but it makes sense, if that's like what came to your mind first, and that it makes you think like audience. It makes you think about when someone, if I get a message from someone that's like, hey, you wrote about me in your newsletter and now I got, an angel check. I don't think that's a coincidence. Or, hey, your job board helped me find my next new, endeavor. It's audience, right? Like the fact that there's people out there helping, you feel validated. It's almost even more, impactful than any single person, that could make you feel that. So that's really cool. I liked that answer to that, actually. And so then what would be one piece of advice that you would give our listeners who are maybe feeling a little like you, like outsiders, that they don't necessarily belong?
Well, everybody who belonged, they're not at the top. So, I mean, I think you can look at all our great minds in the past. Somebody had some weird, quirky, or was outside the box and it wasn't the norm. And so I would be like, embrace your uniqueness, right? If we all look, think, act the same way, then what makes us, different at that point, or what can make us successful? I talked to some of the youth, and they're like, "Oh, you're doing this is so great," and I'm like, "Yeah, I wish I could just work for somebody." But it's like it'd be just so nice just to go to work and just get a check. But I also tell them is that if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as entrepreneurs, we feel out of place because we're doing something hard. We're doing something that many people would be like, why are you doing that? You clearly have a good education. You're doing good. Just go find a job where you don't have to worry and deal with the stress of raising money and HR and everything else besides what just your product is. You're wearing so many hats. So you got to embrace that uniqueness. You chose this, you had an idea, you had a vision, you're a visionary, you got to see that through. And sometimes, even if you're following that vision, it's not where you end, or not where you're trying to go, it's where you end up. Like, we're always going to shoot for the moon, but you land in the stars, right? And so that's where we got to be as entrepreneurs, and just vibing and getting that energy from people that are feeling the same things that you're doing. I mean, there's many times I'm like, "Whoo, we're on that last payroll check. Come on, what check's coming in? Oh, boom, stakeholder came in, or one of our previous investors." People don't understand that except other entrepreneurs who have faced that, right? And so that's unique within itself. But yeah, I mean, it's great to be you. It's great to be an individual, and it's always about thinking outside the box. If
Mm-hmm.
you thought of your company or your solution for a reason, you're out there solving a problem. So go solve that problem, and don't let anything stand in your way.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, well said. And I thank you. I feel like maybe I also needed that advice sometimes because it can, right? It's hard. It's hard when and I think something you and I have in common is like I'm feel like I'm kind of disrupting two industries at the same time, right? It's fintech and media, and journalism, and then on your end, right, cannabis and fintech. So, and when you're tackling a lot of different arenas, it can be hard. And I feel like my parents, I feel like my mom would have, even probably to this day, would probably be like, you don't want to just like have a job where you get to just go and leave.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm over here like building and building and building, but like it is so much more rewarding. And, I totally condone work-life balance, and you should always have your time off and all that stuff. But like, some nights when I have to work late, I don't mind it as much because I'm, writing stuff that's fulfilling. I'm creating content that matters as opposed to creating content that, an editor told me to do because whatever. So anyways.
No, yeah, you hit it right on the head. You hit it right on it. That's that 24/7 life. People are like, oh, when do you work? I was like, I always work. There's zero
I be working
days off. And then they're like, oh, I can't believe you do that. That doesn't make any sense. I need to have vacations and everything else. And then I'm like, well, okay. I was like, you see Chris Brown and all them. I was like, what vacation they on? I was like, you saw me. I was like, the people making money are working every day. I was like, the people are not making money.
Well, but
they got all
fun.
kinds of vacations. They got vacations. They're taking trips. I was like, they're performing for you on your memorial holiday that you went out. And so I was like, what I'm doing, it doesn't, although yes, I'm working every day, it doesn't feel like work. Yes, it's stressful. Exactly. But it's something I'm doing that I can see, I'm seeing impact from what I'm doing. I'm not just, writing a paper or any, like everything that I'm doing 24/7, there's going to be a huge impact for the company. And so it's got to get done. And if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? So it's like, you gotta get that done. And then I just live in that. And so it's like, hey, my vacations are my happy hour, my work hour, my work-life balance. Like you said, I get my yoga in.
Yeah,
I'll go have, get me some tequila. I'll watch the basketball game. So, like between 6 to like 8 is kind of like my, hey, let's just, back away from the laptop or anything. And then right back at it, at 9. So then 9 to like 11, 12, and then, repeat. And so I just keep doing that. And when I do travel somewhere, hey, laptops with me, I'm on phone calls, it never stops on that side, especially when you're raising money, because people you want to talk to, they have normal jobs. So guess when they're free to talk? Oh, they're free to talk on Sunday at 9 a.m. Like, so yeah, I want to sleep in, but that's when they're free to talk. So it's like, I got to talk to them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, that's so funny. And well, as long as like, when you're making work fun and you're making it fulfilling and you're making an impact, then it doesn't have to always feel like work. It can feel like something so much more meaningful. I think, there's one of the things that even like Work Week, the company that powers what the Fintech, the entire tagline is make work fun. And I think that, we can get away from the stigma that work isn't personal, or work, business and personal are separate. I think, what's wrong with being personal in business, right? And what's wrong with the bringing in ourselves. I think that work can be a place where we find belonging, where we find community, where we find all of these things that we need as basic humans, like community and senses of support. So, and value. And so why not have it in the workplace where otherwise you're just going to do that 9 to 5 anyway until you burn out. And
the culture is really transformed. Like when you're saying that right now, I'm just thinking to, there is a point in time, it's not really our time, but kind of like at that point in time where it's like, you worked and you had your personal life. And then, Generation X, the millennials, we've blurred those lines completely, where it's all one, where there's impact in everything we do. Like, we are going to support companies that, align with our ideals and thoughts and missions and everything else. It's not just about, oh, that's work and this is my personal life. Yes, we still need to be professional. Nobody's saying we're not going to be professional and have, a decorum or a courtesy, in business. But I'm very much, all of my business, my personality comes with me. So I can't shut that off when it's like, oh, I'm work. Okay, thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate your time. Let's talk about compliance. Right?
Oh,
there's still going to be me in there because then that's how we connect. We can
exactly.
still, interact every day, and then we can be like, hey, let's go grab a drink. Let's go watch a game.
Mhm.
Do you like shopping? What's the last concert? We talk about schmoozing, and people were doing that on the golf courses and stuff to close deals. But we're really doing that in every day within our business. And fintech really blends that together, right? Fintech's blending
Yeah, it
all
does.
of everything that you're doing. We're on the cell phones, we're mobile, we're sharing money, we're buying money, we're in crypto, and the world's just revolving around us. And so those lines are definitely gone.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Well, maybe one of my last questions for you. Oh wait, actually I'm going to say if we need to be the change that we want to see, what change do you want to see in fintech and how will you embody it?
Well, great question. Gonna stump me here. But I think the change I want to see is us being us. Like when I was talking about the hair, um,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
being able to have your personality speak as much as your education, your intelligence, and the work that you're doing speaks for you. Like you see all of Jontae when I come. You don't just see NatureTrak and risk management.
Mhm.
It's a total package. And so I think the change, me being the change is me being myself and embracing that I'm in fintech. And I think that's what, fintechs need, more people being themselves, because that's where all this disruption's happening. And you see that coming through not just in fintech, but through society. You see the personality and the
Mhm.
power amongst the people once that we're looking to be served, and we're not just looking at the old guard trying to tell us what we can and what we can't do. There's so much information that's at our fingertips now, and so we're just we're tapped in. So now that I'm
Yeah.
tapped in, like let me bring that impact. I'm tapped in now. You shouldn't have opened up the door, fintech. You let me through the door. Now I'm here, so here I come.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good and such a great, kind of closing to the conversation and really bringing it full circle, right? You kind of started in a place from Dare Kid to having being the founder and CEO of NatureTrak and creating an entire pathway for people to follow in that footstep and be themselves along the way. That's incredible. And so, really admire the work that you're doing. And final question: can you tell us what we can expect from you next?
Yeah, I'm keeping on the hush hush, but you, my girl Nicole, so I'm gonna hook you up with a little tidbit. I'm gonna give you some tea on this. But no, I
Do it.
mean, my big goal has always been, well, I don't want to say always. That's a stretch. But since I've come into fintech, it's now
Yeah.
I need my Bobby Axelrod. I want my own bank. So
Mm.
so I want, now that I understand how the banks work and stuff, I was like, I'm gonna become a bank soon. And so that's gonna be the next thing. So next time we sit down, we're gonna talk about how I created my bank and how we went from
Ooh,
there.
hey, that is some tea. Okay, that's awesome. Hell yeah, I love this. All right, we are manifesting. We are throwing it into the world.
Manifest that. Put those
Yep.
vibes out there.
All right, manifest that shit. Pff, okay, it is here. I'm so excited about that, and I so see that for you, and very, very excited for the future. And thank you for sharing that. Only on Humans of FinTech, folks. So yeah, appreciate you,
What the
Jontae. Thank you
fintech?
so much. What the
No,
FinTech?
absolutely. And
Anyways,
thank you.
yes, thanks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. To hear our next story from another diverse leader, be sure to tune in next week. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our show and give it a 5-star rating, as it helps our message reach more people who want to find a sense of belonging too.